This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon and welcome to your sunset safari, Djuma, Sabi Sands, Kruger National, Greater Area. We are very stoked to be out this afternoon. Alex and I just got that vibey feel. And my name is David Hancock. We're going to be taking you on an adventure of note. Like a Jurassic Park film, just there's no dinosaurs here anymore. There used to be. But we can still find some things that date back to the dinosaur times. And we would love to hear from all you kids watching the show. So send your questions to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. I want to hear all of those questions, all those interesting questions. Even if you want to ask about Jurassic Park, you can ask. And we'll do our best to answer them. Well, while I venture into the great unknown, I'm going to send you over to Dylan, who's looking at the beautiful kudu in the Kalahari.
So we're just having a look at this kudu carcass, just to see if there's been anything else that's been... Sorry, I just saw something really humorous at the vehicle over there. Old Yandra and I are back, and we're bringing you this feed from Swallow. We've just been checking out this kudu carcass to see what's been feeding on it during the evening. And there's been a lot more that's been eaten since we were here yesterday. A lot of spotted hyena tracks as well as brown hyenas, and of course jackals all over. What is very interesting compared to when we were here yesterday, remember we followed that like solitary dung beetle that made its way all up here? Well, now there's a whole lot of them. So, and they're getting stuck into the stomach contents and that. So, but I think let's leave it. It's very windy here this afternoon. At least it's not too cold yet. But yeah, we're going to head out into a totally different area now. We're going to go over the dune fields. It's just drop dead beautiful, that area. And if we're very, very lucky, obviously no guarantees, but we'll see if we can pick up something like pangolin tracks or maybe hold out for an aardvark sighting. But let's head out that way and see what we can get. Wonderful. It's good to have you all on board this afternoon. It's going to be a good RV. So we're going to carry on trying to find any sign of what we can out here. And let's take you over to Rowan at Ngala.
Seems like everyone has a good feeling for this afternoon. So welcome to the Sunset Safari on Anbian Ngala. Owen behind the camera, Rowan in front of the camera. So we are looking for a young male leopard known as Makoti young male. We found him late in the morning today with some monkeys chirping at him. So his tracks crossed over the river, went onto that side, and we managed to actually find him on the southern side of the Timbavati River. So we quickly drove the river now, because when we left him, he looked like he was coming back. So now his tracks came back to the northern side. So what we're going to do is go around to the northern side and see if we can pick up on his tracks again. And then maybe later on in the afternoon, when it cools down a little bit, we'll go back to that lioness's den and see if she is around. So fingers crossed, hopefully it's a good afternoon for us as well. But I think our biggest mission for today so far, or this morning, was that, you know how Marcel had the segment or series called Mid-Morning Fun Fact from Marcel. So what we've been trying to establish is a series from Owen. and we wanted to call it OD's DJs. Owen Dahl's dad jokes, and he's completely against it. Does not want to do it. It's like convincing Marcel to dance. Owen just does not want to get in front of the camera. So, other than finding a leopard, that's also something I am trying to work on, to no success. Emma's in my ear, so of course Emma owes me a cake, and, well, not me personally, but the whole team at Ngala a cake, and she says she's definitely 100% for it, and she would send another cake if Owen had to start doing dad jokes. That would really be something exciting. There's a small watering hole there, but there's nothing drinking. Okay, so while we check this road, see if any trucks come across this side, and still trying to convince Owen to do a dad joke, I'm going to send you over to Tristan, who just wants to say good afternoon.
Well, my thoughts are is that my fellow team members across South Africa, between Anbian Ngala and Swali Kalahari and David here in the Sabi Sands, seem to be full of beans this afternoon and very chirpy, which is a good thing, I suppose. Hopefully it means that we're going to have a good day. Now, sorry, I just got dust in my eye and sun at the same time. Not a nice feeling at all. But anyway, as Rowan said, my name is Tristan. On camera I've got BK. Nice to have you aboard Rusty this afternoon. Hopefully, as I said, it's going to be a really good one. We're going to try and see if we can repeat yesterday's drives and this morning's drives, which were all pretty good. We had lots and lots and lots of different things on all of them, and we're going to hope that we're going to have the same this afternoon. I'm going to be trying to see if I can find a male leopard. David tracked him a bit this morning. We weren't able to find him, but I'm going to try and see if I can. He was last seen coming in this direction and going into the drainage line here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little loop around. I want to check a few little water points, see if maybe he had a drink and has just found himself a shady spot to lie down. So that's the plan. Well, my plan for the afternoon. I'll also take any ellies or buffalo that might be at one of the dams. That would also be quite nice. What is also quite nice is the hornbill that is sitting in front of us ever so nicely on a little stick. Are you going to stay there for us, yellow-billed hornbill? I think it might. It's sitting just low down on the ground. They often do sit like this, looking for food. Angus, it's just in their genes. No, I'm joking, Angus. African animals always look beautiful. I mean, I don't know if they always do. Sometimes our animals are not so pretty. You know, if you think of crocodiles, I mean, they're not very pretty. I wouldn't call them pretty, or a terrapin. I'm afraid it's not a pretty animal. But I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question. I think the thing is about African animals is that they've all got amazing markings, and I think that's what really makes them pretty to people. If you think of leopards with their rosettes, and giraffe with their patterns, and zebras with their stripes, and often the colors on their coat are really rich. So you get these beautiful kind of golds, and you get, like I said, the black and whites of zebras. And the bird world, we have these amazing feather colors. So I think that's what attracts everybody to it, is these crazy patterns as well as the coloration of them that makes them appear so pretty. We're very, very spoiled to have the wildlife that we do in Africa. Africa is an incredibly diverse continent, and you know, we talk about Africa as a whole, but what we have here in South Africa, and you compare that all the way up into the Sahara and places like that, it's a really different kettle of fish. And then you've got the rainforests, you've got the islands of Madagascar, and the diversity across all of those different ecosystems is just fascinating, that's for sure. All right, our hornbill seems to be snacking and finding itself little things to eat there, maybe the odd little insect that's moving around. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you all the way to the other side of South Africa with Dylan, who's watching an antelope.
Lovely little steenbok, a steenbok female. So this is our smallest antelope that we have on Swalu. They actually got a huge distribution. It's a very common species through southern Africa, and a very important food item for predators in this area. We've seen caracal catching them, jackals catching them, leopard, very, very important for cheetah. Wild dogs catch them regularly. As you can imagine, there's obviously lots of them. That's nice behavior that we're seeing there. She's sheltering from the wind. Although we've got a cold front moving in, that low temperature hasn't reached us yet. So although there's wind, the ambient temperature is actually still quite warm now. So she's just getting a bit of shelter from the wind, as well as in a nice shady spot. There was a little male here earlier, but he's just trotted off. Matt, that's an interesting question, and the way you can look at it, that is, although we've got lots of predators, we've got way more of the prey animals, so the herbivores, from steenbok to kudu, giraffe, hartebeest, gemsbok. So we've got a huge range of them, and if you think of it as that pyramid where you got lots of animals, lots of grass and plants, and then lots of animals that eat those, and then a few predators at the top. That's what it's like out here as well. So although we've got good numbers of predators, we've got even bigger numbers of herbivores. So the predators are always going to have lots to eat. How big those ears on that steenbok are. So I didn't get the name there, but the question is, would predators often go for small animals like the steenbok rather than bigger ones? And the answer there is predators are very opportunistic. So a cheetah, let's take two cheetah males as an example. If you have a coalition of males, and they can go in coalitions or groups of up to 4 or 5 males, yes, they are very capable of catching large animals, large antelope, like kudu, or wildebeest, but they would actually, if they moving through their territory or their home range, and they come across a steenbok, they will have a go at trying to catch it. I've seen lions trying to catch birds, water birds even, things like moorhen, monitor lizards. So I've watched leopards actually eating insects, although they are capable of catching large herbivores as well. So we look at predators and we say, well, there's an optimal size prey that they would ideally like to take, but they can actually go for a whole range of things, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller than what we would normally consider their prey items. So steenbok is super important out here, just as one example in terms of food for predators. So we're going to leave this steenbok resting in the shade over here, and let's head over to Rowan, who's hot on the trail of leopard.
Still no luck from our side, but we are driving just very, very, very slowly and checking every single little track we can find. So that's quite interesting. Here looks like a puff adder track. Across the road you can see the line there going from side to side. I wish it was still on the road. We'd love showing puff adders. Get that own. Yeah, we had such a nice time with one the other day, and quite docile, quite actually very nice to photograph. Often you can lie down just right in front of it to photograph it. I guess not a lot of people would want to do that. I think a lot of people are scared of snakes, but we quite enjoy it. But still, no leopard tracks so far. And we drove this road this morning. Actually, this is where we heard the monkey's alarm calling. It was in a tree here. And So from here we decided to loop into the river. Couldn't see anything in the river, but we found the monkeys, and then looped onto the other side, and then eventually found the leopard. But it looks like his tracks are coming back this way. So I don't know, he might be following Inyala female and her youngsters, or her one youngster, sorry, her one cub. If you had to judge by the way his tracks are moving, and this morning he had his nose up the entire time. So what I think is going to happen, Yapi and Nikki are going to try, let me put this thing down before I stab someone. Yapi and Nikki is going to try find Inyala female and the cub, and we are going to spend a bit of time here looking for Makoti male. Be quite nice if they all join up together. Molly, who's 14, which animal do I think I see the most on drive? Molly, impalas, without a doubt. Majority of the drive, well, animals you see here, it's just impalas. They are definitely the most numerous around here. They are everywhere. Actually, we haven't seen one this afternoon yet, but we haven't really been checking in the right place. But I think if we had to turn around and go up onto the old airstrip, Molly, we would be able to find impalas. Definitely not a difficult animal to find. There's a lot of them here. Probably closely followed by, I don't know, wildebeest or zebra. Okay, so judging by where we were in the river, where the trucks came up, it should come up to this path. I'm gonna do a bit of a walk here, but for now, send you back over to David on Djuma.
Welcome back. Alex and I are on our way to try and see if we can find the nkuhumas that Tristan had this morning with that epic action. So let's hope we can find them. Let's hope they haven't moved too far from where they were. First gonna have a quick look around Twin Dams to see if they maybe went for a drink after their snack. But it would be nice to see them. Samashi 13, welcome to the show. You've asked why are there no tigers in Africa? And that is a good question. I suppose I don't really know. Africa's got lions, Asia has tigers. It's just the way things ended up working out. It's the way things are made. So I'm not too sure. We don't have kangaroos either, only in Australia. That's, I guess, what makes the earth so beautiful and mesmerizing, is that everything is unique. Every place has different wildlife. Imagine how boring it would be if there were only lions. Imagine how boring it would be if there were only tigers. Instead, we've got a huge diversity. We've got all sorts of things. We've got lions and tigers and leopards, and all sorts of cool things. So I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm happy that it's diverse. Well, we're just coming down to Twin Dams. Let's quickly have a look. Just going to slow down here and see if I can see any tracks. Florence, you're 8 years old. You've asked, what do I think about keeping big cats in a zoo? Do I think it's good to keep big cats in a zoo? And personally, it's obviously everyone's got their own opinion, but for me, I don't think it's necessary anymore. I think it was necessary years ago. Mr. Beautiful Elephant's coming down to drink some water. Let's watch him while we talk about it. I think years ago it was necessary to educate people about big cats. But nowadays, with WildEarth and being able to show you these big cats up close and live, you get to learn all about them in their natural habitat, so not necessary anymore to have them all cooped up in a zoo where they're not comfortable. That's my opinion anyway. There is an elephant just here. I'm just trying to find a gap in the bushes. He is just there, but now it's very thick. I was kind of hoping he came out into the open to drink water. We'll stick with him a little while and see. He might move. There he is. Listen to this beautiful boy as he crosses ahead. Why are you so upset? See how he shakes his head? That means he's a little bit undecided, uncertain, and maybe even a little bit annoyed. What do you think about us, big boy? You gonna give us a sniff? Lovely to see an elephant so close. Beautiful big boys. Been lovely to see. Looks like he's now half hidden in a bush. And on that note, let's send you over to Dylan with a lizard in a bush.
Okay, this was a brilliant spot by Yandre. Okay. And it's going to be quite difficult to see. I'm going to actually get out the vehicle now and I'll walk around there and it might help us a little bit. What ran into this little bush over there is called a ground agama. It's a lizard. It's a ground-dwelling lizard. So seeing there's quite a bit of interest in terms of snakes and reptiles, we were hoping that we could actually have a better view of this little guy, but he seems to have scurried into that cover over there. So I'm just going to walk around and maybe you'll get a better view of him. Alright, so Yandre's just going to keep his eyes on that bush and I'm going to walk around slowly. It's very, very unlikely that he'll come out because obviously he'll see me as a potential predator and his safety is inside that bush. But yeah, maybe we're lucky. No, he's not going to come out, eh? You're just going to have to trust us. There was an agama in this bush, I promise. But while we're sitting at this bush, it's actually called a waxberry. And unfortunately, it doesn't have any berries on at the moment that I can show you. But it's a super palatable plant and the animals actually love eating it. Even I can eat it. No, I'm just kidding. Not good. But it is palatable. But it is palatable. And you normally find it growing in thickets where gets a lot of protection from other bushes. That's why that one's looking like really scraggy, and they can go actually quite tall. But yeah, we're going to carry on and see if we can hopefully locate a snake while it's still quite warm out here. I think let's head back to David and his ellies, and we're going to carry on seeing if we can find snakes for you guys.
And look who we found. It didn't take too long. As we thought, after that snack, they came down to the water for a quick drink. And a siesta in the shade. There's the pride. Look at that beautiful shot. That's such a typical lion picture in the tall yellow grass. She blends in menacingly. When you see that on foot, your heart skips a couple beats. And now we know why. Now we know why that elephant was so startled at our presence. He was unusually perturbed or unusually unhappy. We didn't do anything to him. We parked nice and far away from him, yet he still came and gave us a head shake. And it makes sense now because he obviously smelt the lion. So that immediately startled him. Remember, if you're watching this morning, we were talking about how elephants don't like lion or predators very much. So when they smell them, they get a little bit disconcerted or a little bit annoyed. Isn't this just amazing? There's another big elephant bull that came down to the water. He doesn't appear to smell the lion. If he did, he would show some noticeable interest. The wind is blowing in such a way that I think the lion's scent isn't quite reaching him. Lucas, age 14, thanks for your question. Lovely to have you on the show and watching. You've asked, how do I track animals so well? Well, I was very, very fortunate to get the opportunity to grow up here in this very area, very close by here, in the Manyeleti. And my dad taught me a lot about the bush. So just naturally with that upbringing one learns a lot about different animals and their movements and their behaviors. Well, you're gonna just sit here on the Damwall Road and enjoy these cats and this elephant. Speaking of elephant, it sounds like there's a roadblock. Let's go over to Tristan.
I do. They're a little bit far from where I am at the moment, but that's because I can't really get to them. It's so wet in front of me in the riverbed that I'm going to get myself stuck, and I don't want to be stuck. You can see all the water in the sand there, and so if I drive there, the whole car is just going to sink. So for now, we just got a slight view of elephants, but they are walking generally in this direction towards us. So what I'm hoping is we're going to see them kind of coming through this archway of trees, and we'll get them naturally framed by the branches that come over the riverbed. It should be pretty. So that's what the plan is. At the moment, though, they've stopped. They were walking so nicely up this way, and then all of a sudden one of them got interested in a bush, and then they all just stopped, and now they're just sitting I think probably getting water. So what they've done is they've probably dug a little bit there, and they are now siphoning the water from the sand, and that's why we're having a bit of a problem. BK, you know what we can do actually? We can go around, so it's going to make life for you a lot easier, because BK is going to have a tough time. Unfortunately, the elephants are in the sun, and where we are is the shade, so for the camera, it's very, very difficult to see the difference. It's not, cameras aren't like our eyes. They're not as good at being able, oh, sorry, BK, to balance light. Derek, that's a good question, this. If elephants are so smart, why do they destroy their food supply? Well, the thing is that while they might push over a certain tree and that might look like it's destroying it, a lot of the time that tree might be something that they don't particularly use the leaves for. So they might not eat a lot of the leaves, but they love the roots of that particular tree, and therefore they're not actually destroying huge amount of their food. They're just really taking the food that they like. And as you can see out here, it's not like there's a shortage of food for elephants. I mean, we've got grass, we've got trees all over the place, and so in this particular area it's not so bad, but they do destroy things in other areas. In an area, a lot of problems with elephants due to the fact that they are very, very destructive, and they've actually thinned an area of animals are actually not able to survive. And they themselves, if they keep going, are eventually going to get into a situation where they're going to force their numbers to drop. But the thing about that is almost nature's way of controlling elephant numbers. Now, without humans on the planet and us trying to shoot elephants and kill elephants for their ivory and poaching, you'll find that an elephant has very few natural enemies. So yes, the odd hyena, yes, there are lion prides in some areas that specialize in elephants, but the number of animals that they kill is so small that the elephant population will just boom and go out of control. And so for nature, it's got to have a way of slowing elephants down, and that would be if elephant numbers get too high, they destroy too much of what they eat, and then it starts to become harder for them to find food, and then their numbers start to drop again. That's ideally how it's supposed to work. Of course, it's a bit tricky now because of humans and where we've inhabited and how we've cut elephants off from being able to move around. It means that also they're not able to move away from an area and let that area recover and go somewhere else and then come back. And so now it's a little bit more tricky. We have to manage it a little bit more than what we were in the past. That's for sure. But you can see, as I was suspecting, this elephant is drinking. That's what they're doing in the riverbed. They are absolutely loving these riverbeds at the moment, and that's because there's still lots of water underneath the surface of the sand, as we saw just now. And so what they do is they dig and they make these little holes, and those holes, what will happen is the water will start to come back into the hole where they've dug. And as it does that, it passes through the sand particles. Now, sand generally has little it's basically small little stones is what it is, and that acts as a mechanical filter, so it cleans the water. And the water that comes out of there is far cleaner than, let's say, the dam where Dewey the hippo is up the river here. So they're much nicer to drink from here than it is from there, and that's why you find them in these riverbeds at the moment. They're really trying to get the best water they can. And the nice thing about that is that they open it up for so many other animals. The only problem with that is that the elephants have created about 4 million water holes now for all of our other animals, which means that they don't go to our normal water holes, which is making life a little bit interesting in terms of trying to track them down. But proving my point is not only this herd is in a riverbed, David further down the riverbed has also got some ellies of his own doing the same thing.
Just repositioned to have a better look at this beautiful bull. What a stunning sight it is. Let's enjoy as he comes down into the water. awesome is this? Well, so glad this guy can get a drink. He must be thirsty. And this is not the only place that elephants can find water. Let's send you over to Tristan for a different view.
Indeed, we do have a close-up. We've managed to get down lower in the riverbed. You can actually see his truck going in, and much like David's one, slurping and spraying and doing the exact same thing. It's amazing to watch, and the patience that they display as they do it. Because you can see they don't get much at a time. It's literally just a little slurp that they get, and then they put it into their mouth. And you can see how wet the trunk is. It gives you an idea of how much water he's actually been able to get. The other side of drinking out of riverbeds like this is often the soil type that you get will have some sort of nutrients that the water will then contain. And so drinking out of here can also mean that they are absorbing certain things that they don't normally get. If you go into a place like the Congo, or into the rainforest, you get a forest elephant, and the forest elephants there are quite interesting. They like to make their way to certain places called bays, and bays essentially are these areas that are like saline marshes. So the water is actually quite salty. It's all these filled with all these minerals and sodium. And basically what happens is these ellies go and they shove their trunks down into the sand, much like what you're seeing with this elephant, and then they actually blow bubbles and they disturb all of that those minerals, and they get down underneath the sand, and there's basically soil underneath there that they're able to actually get, and then they eat those minerals. It's pretty cool to watch. So you think that they're drinking at first, but then you start to see these bubbles coming up from the water, and then you actually see that they're putting in not only water but little minerals and bits of sand and clay that they've managed to get from underneath, which is really, really cool to watch. And they go quite deep. Sometimes they'll even go into areas where they go up to almost their eyes. And like I say, they sit there in all these bubbles, and it looks like they're in a boiling pot of water, the amount of bubbles that they blow as they try and activate all of these minerals and then suck them up. It's really, really cool to watch. And amazing, because in those bay areas, generally there's very little vegetation because of the quality of the water and how kind of salty and corrosive it is. Trees quite struggle a little bit with it, and you'll find that these guys have to kind of go into these open clearings, and that's when you get a really good idea of how many elephants there actually are in those rainforest systems, because in the rainforest itself, you hardly see them. You see lots of signs of them, you can hear them, but you generally don't see too much. And I'll try and see if I've got a photo of them doing it, because I think I have one on my phone of these ellies kind of eye deep, shoving their trunks down and sort of blowing for it. I don't have the one where you can actually see the bubbles coming up. Nope, I don't have it, I'm afraid. I've only got ones of them just standing up straight. But it's really cool that you guys can hear it. There's a bit of a breeze today, so the wind is a little bit much, but hopefully you can still hear him splashing and drinking. But did you see there just now what he did was he actually took out a bit of that stuff and threw it. Now what that sometimes is that there's extra debris in the water. So if there's too much sand, they take and they throw a bit of the water out, and that will be laden with sand, and then they drink the stuff that doesn't have as much in it. And that's all to just, one, protect the digestive system, and two, the teeth are it. Ultimately that ends up wearing the teeth down just a little bit quicker. Beautiful though. The nice shots of close-ups of him drinking and his tusks. Alright, it sounds like we have a little bit of breakup in our signal at the moment, and so while we sit here and enjoy our elephant and hope that our signal sorts itself out, let's send you back across to David.
Welcome back to the mighty lions. Look at this baby on the right here, these two youngsters. mother. It's now easy to see how camouflaged they can be in the tall grass. Very difficult to spot, especially this time of year when the grass is the same color as they are. Christian, 8 years old, you've asked an incredibly good question. Does a pride have to have males to be considered a pride? And the immediate answer would be no. The pride is actually made up of the females that you see here and their offspring. Now, generally, pride always has males, except for the rare occurrence when perhaps those males get killed and the males that killed them maybe don't locate the pride, or there's a gap in between takeover where the coalition member might die, in which case there might be a time when there's no males, but generally there are always a coalition of males, or a group of males between 1 and 6 males that are with the pride. So very good question. Well, it sounds like another elephant has come to drink with Tristan, so let's send you over to him while we stick around with these sleepy lions.
Not just another one, another 2 elephants. One is drinking and the other one is on the bank, coming down to drink. And I always love watching when this happens, because sometimes they push each other out the way for water. They start to compete, and then it starts to become a competition as to who can get to the water, and there's a little bit of, argy-bargy, as they say, as they try and kind of figure out a way to be able to feed together, to drink together. I saw a bird. Oh, nice. Oh, there's a green-winged Pytilia that just flew off. I haven't seen one of those in ages. A Melba finch. Now, it's that time where we welcome all of you that are just joining us. If you weren't part of our kids session this afternoon, it's nice to have the rest of you on board. Kids, you are welcome to carry on watching and ask all the questions you want. We'll still answer your questions, but to those of you that have joined, you guys can ask questions via #WildEarth or @FC on the YouTube chat. Hopefully we're going to have a really, really good afternoon. It's certainly started nicely with elephants and lions and all the good things that we have out here. There's my bird. Can you see it here, BK, in this little acacia that's just to the right? It's just sitting out in the open there. It's not a bird we get on camera, just straight in from there. Yeah, and then just a little bit to your left. Straight in now. No, there it goes. Ah, don't worry. It's okay. They don't sit still for very long, unfortunately, but there's a little green-winged Pytilia, which are beautiful little birds. Like I say, tough to get on camera, but like most of the small birds out here. But you can see these two having a little bit of a pushing match, and generally size is what matters here. The bigger boys will be able to dominate the waterhole, and what was happening just now is we had that one individual sitting, drinking, and the other 2 just sat and waited. And as soon as that one turned and started to walk, these 2 came down immediately to come and drink. And now you can see the one is trying to use its bum to push the other one out the way. And it seems like we're having a day for competition over resources, because this morning the lions were obviously having a huge fight over their warthog, And for those of you that missed it, the Nkumas caught a warthog this morning and there was a massive fight over it. But you can see now with our illies, they're also competing over this water source. So there's a lot of pushing and kind of toing and froing as they try to figure it out. And the smaller ones actually bullied the bigger one away. Can you believe it? Look at that. I think this bigger one is a little bit in disbelief at what's just taken place. Look at the other one using its bum just to be like, you're not coming here. No, come and take it from me. I am going to dominate the little honey hole that is our little water spot. So, naughty elephant. Jeremiah is shoving him. Essentially, he's basically saying, get out the way. And when you've got a bottom that is as big as an elephant's, well, I suppose it's a good weapon to use to kind of just push people out the way, or not people, but others out the way, and able to kind of worm your way in there and get to the point where you're able to have a drink. So it's a clever movement from an elephant and cheeky at the same time, that's for sure. But I think we're in for a change in weather. So, Mark, maybe you've just joined us now. We were chatting about this just now with the kids, but why would an elephant not go to a waterhole? I'll get into the weather change shortly, but basically, this water is going to be better tasting and better quality than what a waterhole is going to be. You can imagine it's rained. That rain has all filtered down into one of these water points. That water point has then had buffalo go into it. It's had elephants. It's had hippos. All of them have pooed, peed, and just generally lived in there. And so what's starting to happen now is all of that excess nutrients means that there's an algae that starts to build up, there's dust that's on the surface of the water, and so the water quality starts to really take a nosedive quite quickly. Whereas this water is actually still flowing underneath the surface, and because of the sand particles and the way that they're digging, it's actually being filtered really nicely. It's basically mechanical filtration that's happening, and so it's a much better water for them, and it's packed with nutrients and minerals that they're getting from the substrate of this riverbed rather than what they're getting from a dam. So much nicer. It's like going and drinking filtered water versus festering pond scum water. I wouldn't want to drink festering pond scum water. All right, my elephant has left, and so I will chat about the change in weather just now, but my signal's not good enough for that. And so while I find some better signal, I'm going to send you all the way to Swalo Kalahari. It seems like the boys have gotten dressed up on that side of the world, and I wonder what they're wearing now.
So we've actually got quite a cool sighting here. Looks like a red hartebeest bull. And he seems quite relaxed. So these are very common animals in this area. And we found cheetah and wild dogs, they'll often actually tackle these animals as prey items. Quite curious. Oh, it's a beautiful bull, eh? But you see that lovely rich red color and the black on the legs. We'll have a closer look at that just now. Sure, look how closely it's approaching. Okay, we're just going to, Yandra and I, we're just going to sit nice and quietly. Geez, it's coming right up to us. This is absolutely incredible. Geez, it's staring right at me now. So that is a red hartebeest, what's left of it, and it is a bull by the thickness of the horns. And you can actually see there's quite a few gnaw marks, and that's rodents, things like porcupines that have actually been gnawing at the skull to get calcium. But yeah, so that's quite a interesting thing to see there. So this is the front of the skull. It's obviously been all broken and eaten off, and that's where the neck vertebra would join on over here, atlas and axis. And it's actually about this kind of height as well. That would be the natural height of the animal, give or take. Cool. Well, let's leave it here for more porcupines and other things to eat. Yeah, There's lots of these around your gremlin, these zombie hartebeests, and so other zombie things as well. But I hope Yandra and myself are excluded from that. Let's carry on trying to find a snake for you guys. So our thinking as well is, as we get onto these dune crests, we're going to try to find a real hartebeest. And what I was going to say is, as we come onto these dune crests, Yandra and I, we're just going to sit quietly and we're going to scan what we call the dune streets. In other words, these big valleys in between each dune crest, we call dune streets. And hopefully we'll see some animals from on top there, including a live hartebeest. And my nemesis here is going to be, for the next couple of weeks, is going to be aardvark. Because at this time of year, they're going to start coming out in daylight hours to feed on harvester termites. Whereas in the summer months, when it's so hot, they're normally coming out much later at night. So hopefully we've got a good chance of finding an aardvark. Let's head over to Tristan. He's got some zebra on that side, I believe.
I hope that you find your aardvark, Dylan. I think it would be a first for WildEarth. I don't think we've had an aardvark that's actually alive. I know James has had a dead one, but I don't think we've had one that's alive. So that would be really, really special to have this afternoon. It's one of the great things about the Kalahari is those rarities for us here are a little bit more common there. I mean, I wouldn't say that they are, you know, like impalas, but they are legitimately a lot easier to find than they are here. Right, so we are doing a spot of birding in the Mulawati. It's our ever-accommodating brown-hooded kingfisher. These guys are so much better during the winter months than they are in the summer. In the summer, these poor things get just completely out-competed by the woodland kingfishers. They kind of almost disappear, these guys. You find them just flying around and keeping quiet, but as soon as the woodland leave, then they become vocal again, and we start to see them, and they sit out beautifully on this particular stretch of the Mulawati. Often find them just on the edge of the bank where they sit and they pose nicely, and there's a couple on this particular riverbed. There's one that's here, and then about 200 meters down there's another one, and then about 200 meters further to where Dave, maybe a little bit more, maybe about 400 meters to where David is with the Ellie and the lions, there's another one, and all three of them are relaxed, but the middle one is the most relaxed. The middle one you can drive right up to. This one's a little bit more shy. You've got to be a little bit further away, and the one right in the southern part is the shyest of the three, so we get to know them. I mean, they might be different birds, but they're just always in the exact same spots and always sitting on the exact same branches, so I suspect that they're the same individuals, and they are really, really pretty. I mean, they're not as vibrant as a woodland, but they still have those beautiful blues, and they've got incredibly pretty beaks. There's bright red on the beak, and then of course that little brown hood, which is what they get their name from. They are cute, exactly. All kingfishers are nice. I love kingfishers. I like the way that they're built. They're kind of these little stocky guys with sharp beaks and generally very, very, very pretty feathers. Even the pied and the giant, while they're not part of the kind of blue kingfishers or the colorful kingfishers, their markings are still so intricate and incredibly mesmerizing that they themselves also demand a bit of respect. And that giant kingfisher's size is just quite something as well. You can hear a pill-spotted owlet calling somewhere close by. It is a pretty bird. I always enjoy spending time with these guys, and like I say, those blues are incredibly beautiful. All right, we're going to carry on. We're going to leave our kingfisher to itself. It's going to just sit and perch. In the meantime, though, off you go to David. He's got an Ellie approaching him.
We've just been spending some time with this beautiful big bull. He was the same guy that was drinking water. Now he's just having a lovely feed. now all you can see is his bum. We just thought we'd come spend some more time with him while the lions are sleeping, because he is just so majestic. Sunita, you've asked, have I ever seen an elephant become aggressive because it must? And I have, most certainly. It happens often when they're in must. Remember, must is a very heightened level of testosterone. So they can go into a bit of a rage every now and then. Not all. Some, especially older bulls, remain very calm even when they're in must. But some of the younger ones can get quite aggressive. There's some others coming to join him. But as always with these elephants, just got to give them their space, allow them to feel relaxed, don't make them feel like they're being threatened or that you're coming too close, and they'll be just fine, even the ones in must. Just pull a little bit ahead here so that we can get another view of him. He's sitting under two of my favorite bigs, if you want to call them the bigs in the bush. Sitting with two of my favorite bigs, this massive elephant and this beautiful big leadwood tree that's just towering over us. So I'm in a very happy place. My favorite tree, and probably my favorite animal to spend time with. Veronica, you've asked, what do I do when an elephant gets too close? And is there such a thing as too close? There is such a thing as too close, although that varies very much depending on the elephant. For instance, this is not too close. For him, he's very relaxed. He's a chilled out dude. He's happily eating. He's decided to take a couple more steps towards us, and he might even come closer. But if this was a female with a brand new baby, then this would be too close. Because of course that mommy will be far more protective. So you can get too close. It's up to us, that's our job, to try not to allow that to happen, because we do our utmost to not stress out the animals unnecessarily, and being too close can make them feel stressed. What's he doing there? Why is he beating the grass like he's angry at it? He's doing that so that he can clean it. He wants to make sure that he gets all the sand and dirt off the roots before he puts it in his mouth, so that he's not crunching sand and stone unnecessarily. Al, you've said it's such a magic moment to be near elephants, and being the one sitting here, I wholeheartedly agree. Sometimes I don't even have to look at them. I just close my eyes and listen to the sounds and the smells. It's a real privilege. Well, while we're enjoying our very big animal, let's send you over to Dylan, who's looking for smaller things.
So we're just sitting out at Dune Crest, There's some gemsbuck in the distance. Oryx. Yeah, they're just trotting off. It's getting super windy out here now, so a lot of the animals are quite nervous with this wind. Problem with strong wind, there's so much noise with the bushes, you may even hear it through my microphone here, that it can mask the sound of predators approaching. So animals do tend to become a little bit more nervous when there's wind around. But we're using these opportunities on this high ground to also scan for aardvark that may be out feeding. Yeah, no, it's really gusting now. But we're just going to use binoculars and just keep scanning. These aardvark from a distance, it looks like a termite mound, just like moving along the landscape with this like rounded back. And we haven't forgotten about the snakes, I promise. Thanks, Debbie. It is always cool seeing oryx, and they are just such iconic arid area adapted animals. I mean, they're just beautiful. I always think that they look like they've been airbrushed, you know, they've been air painted, the patterns on them. But we'll hopefully see some close a little bit later, then you can have a really good close-up view of them. Oh, this wind is strong now. Kite flying weather. Thanks, Kayla. We love looking for snakes. You know, the animals that so many people don't like, and yet they're so fascinating. And you know, if we can actually show you one close up, it's just going to be so beautiful to be able to share that with everyone. And it's nice to hear that people get excited about snakes. So we're getting buffeted here a little bit by this wind, so we're going to send you over to David while Yandra and I get to a little bit lower ground and see if there's actually anything that we can pick up on. So let's go find them.
Well, we are still with this beautiful elephant. Another vehicle is just pulled up behind it, also enjoying this magnificent creature. Watch him stretch those back legs to reach where he wants to reach. Lindy, you've commented how it's crazy to see the landscape change between Tswalu and Djuma. And it is cool, eh? You get to see places in the blink of an eye as you switch between them, the beauties of modern technology allowing us to do that. And it's also nice to see how varied our country is. South Africa is one of the most incredible countries to travel through if you ever get the opportunity to really do a proper road trip and drive from Limpopo down to the Northern Cape and all up and down and around. You very quickly realize how vast and diverse it is, and that's what you're getting to see now between Tswalu and Djuma. The vegetation, the soil types, the animals. That's what makes our country so unique. Well, let's hook around and see we can spend a little bit more time with Mr. Elephant. Oh, he's disappearing. Why don't we just give him some space and watch him go over the road and off to wherever he's going. Maybe he's going down to Chitwa. We'll go find some succulent somewhere that he enjoys munching on. So lovely to spend time with these gentle giants, and it's a privilege to be able to show you their mannerisms and what they do, how they eat, and their movements. We always appreciate your support. Remember to follow that link at the bottom of the page and help us to keep helping our team do what we do best out here, bring you this beauty. Robin, you've asked what types of trees do elephant normally eat, and do they have a favorite? They definitely appear to have favorites. It obviously depends a bit on the time of the year, but like in marula fruiting season, beginning of the year, in our summertime, their favorites are generally marulas. And then most of the acacias are very nutritious. But I think fruiting tree is probably their number one favorite, and then out of season they'll start moving on to the leaves that are sweeter and more nutritious. And when times are rough and we're in the drought and there's not much to munch, then you'll start seeing them eating species that they wouldn't normally eat. So they definitely appear to have firm favorites. But their absolute favorite would be a citrus orchard. If they could find one of those, then they would be in heaven. They really like oranges. Not that there's any orange trees out here, but in the past when elephants have managed to be naughty and escape the reserve, you normally find them in an orange orchard, and then they have to get vets and helicopters and trailers in to get them back into the reserve. Those are generally the young naughty boys. I believe everyone is thrilled with this elephant sighting, so Alex and I, we've really enjoyed it. We spent a good amount of time with them this afternoon. And the best is, when these guys move off, we only have to drive a couple hundred meters and then go chill with the lions. Isn't that just lucky? Privileged. We're hardly working this afternoon, Alex and I. Just chillaxing with the best of them. Hear the rustling of that dry grass. And the times and the seasons are turning. We are well into winter now, and grass is only going to get drier. It's going to start featuring less and less in the elephant's diet as It loses all of its nutrition at the moment. There's still a bit for them, but pretty soon they're going to be feeding predominantly on leaves and bark and roots. No doubt looking forward to the first summer rains that will bring fresh green shoots of grass. Cheers, old boy. Dove, you've asked, is there any tree or shrub that no animal eats? That's a good question. Maybe think about that for a second. I think pretty much, I can't think of a single thing that doesn't get used by something in the bush. Even your euphorbias that are toxic, like literally will put you in hospital if we ingest it as humans, still get eaten by things like rhino. Things like porcupine will eat some of your toxic latex-filled trees. So things that are toxic to us and appear to not be very palatable at all often get eaten by things that seem to be unaffected by them. I mean, not just trees, even something like keratin. We were talking about the horn moths the other day. Keratin is your fingernail, basically. It's horn and hoof. And there's even something that specializes in eating that. Bone, skin, everything. Wood and leaves and grass, everything eats it. Not everything, but there's something for everything. So I can't think of anything that doesn't get touched. I'll have to look that up. That's a good question. Well, it's been beautiful. We're going to hop around the corner and go see how our cats are doing. So let's send you over to Dylan in the Kalahari.
So we haven't had much joy yet with snakes or aardvark, but Yandra and I were just chatting and we were just saying, it's actually a good reminder, often if you go out on a drive and you say, okay, well, I'm going to look for leopard, or I'm going to look for a snake, a python, or whatever it is, you often forget what else is going on around you, and it's good just to take a step back and say, well, actually, great, it's cool looking for snakes, but let's not forget to stop and scan the dune crest for cheetah that are maybe lying up, or squirrels in burrows, or owls sitting in a tree, or elephant shrews running. There's so many other things out here, but you just got to slow down and take the time to do it. So there was a question earlier. Someone was asking about trees or plants that animals don't really or don't like utilizing or don't like feeding on, and we've got a number of plants out here that are generally considered pretty toxic. One that comes to mind is called the Bushman poison bulb. It's got this beautiful underground bulb with these sheaths around it and these big broad green leaves. In fact, I can actually see a dried one now. I'm gonna go get it. That was pure luck. But while we're at it, let's do this. That was absolute luck. That was perfect. So I'm just standing in the light here. So this is a very old one. It's completely dried out. It's dead. You can see it's completely hollowed at the bottom. But this is the plant I was talking about, called a Bushman poison bulb, and they get about 4 or 5 times the size of this one. And remember I was saying the bulb. So this part would be underground. Okay, the roots would come out from here. And this little piece over here would be above ground with these beautiful fan-like or strap-like leaves. And it gets a magnificent big head of pink flowers in the spring. But these leaf sheaths, all parts of the plant are toxic, and pretty potent toxicity as well. But I've seen mountain zebra, eating these leaves. I've seen baboons pulling these bulbs out and actually eating the roots. We've got a beautiful weevil, an insect. It's called a lily weevil, and they'll actually feed on these as well sometimes. Yeah, so to answer that, that question that was posed earlier, do you get plants that animals eat? I think there's very few plants anywhere in the world that are so toxic or so well protected with thorns or anything that nothing can eat them. But often we just need to shift our way of looking at it and saying, well, maybe a big animal can't eat it, but what about small things? And in South Africa and at Swali, we've got so many different butterfly and insect species that'll feed on things that other animals just won't touch. And often those poisons get transferred into the adults. So if you look at butterflies, ones that are often very brightly colored, one that jumps to mind are the monarchs. They'll often the larvae will feed on poisonous plants like the milkweed family, and then those toxins actually get into the larvae and then into the adults, which makes them unpalatable to any predators, things like birds. So anyway, that's just in a nutshell. Sorry, I didn't get your name there. Can you please repeat your name and the question? So Faf, the name Bushman poison bulb comes from the reason that early inhabitants of these areas, the Bushmen, also known as the San, they utilized this bulb frequently for a number of different reasons. And one of the key ones was using the roots. Well, actually the bulb, so the bulb and the roots. They would take a fresh bulb, peel these scales back, and then they would actually make an incision on it, and then you'd get this resin that oozes out, and they would leave that resin to dry till it becomes like tacky, almost like glue. And then they would often mix that with another plant that occurs here growing up in the mountains called the euphorbia. It's got this white latex that's super, super toxic, very, very irritant on your skin. You don't want to get it in your eyes. And they would mix these two together, and then they would actually put that on their arrows, on the arrow tips. And they would use that as an arrow poison. And the thing there, reading the literature, they would say it obviously wasn't instantaneous. And these arrows are often very short and didn't necessarily penetrate the animal very deeply. But the poison on the arrow would start working. And the accounts that you read are that the guys, although it didn't kill the animal immediately, but within a day, sometimes 2 days, the animal would go down. And so they would just keep following those tracks till they got to it. But that's one of the names for this plant. It's very cool, eh? Very cool. Lots of good stuff out here. So we're going to carry on, and I think let's head off to Rowan with his elephants. See what they got that side.
Well, unfortunately, there's a little gremlin issue in Ngala, so you guys are with us now as we slowly kind of coasting along on the sort of northeastern side of Djuma. Just desperately trying to see if we can find any sign for one of our spotted cats. It's really been quite bizarre to see how few we haven't seen any, to be honest with you. Even just the tracks has been dire from a female track point of view. It's been really difficult. Male tracks a lot, But, it seems like we've got Mulawati, we've got this other unknown male who's fairly shy, and then, Tingana, who's also a difficult cat to track. But other than that, there just seems to be so few leopards moving about, and it really is been the hardest period of leopard viewing I think I've ever had in the Sabi Sands. So we're trying to just scrounge one out somewhere, just checking all the areas that I know that they normally like to use. Not that that's worked so far, but I think if you keep repeating the process, eventually you'll get it right, and we'll find what we're looking for. I think once we can just follow and figure out a little bit of a pattern, I think that's our biggest problem at the moment. We just don't have a pattern. Leopards are creatures of habit. They like to walk in certain places at certain times and do certain things. And so if you can work out where they favoring water-wise, where they are spending a lot of their time, and follow them on walking patrols, then generally you can start to work out what they're actually doing. But at this stage, when you're not seeing them, it starts to become harder and harder and harder to figure that out. So Caleb, who's 11 years old, you're asking what leopards primarily eat and if that's got something to do with their disappearance. So leopards are pretty versatile creatures. They'll eat pretty much anything. In this particular reserve, again, it depends on the individual, but you're looking at probably impalas, duikers, scrub hares. BK, where was that entrance that James used? This way. I'm going to just check here at Tunny's den, just in case, you never know. And those are probably the three that they mostly target. But we still have ample amounts of those. And in fact, you would have expected to see a lot more leopards at this time because they're going to be hunting the rutting male impalas while they're so distracted. And that normally means a leopard kill, tree, days of seeing them. And we're not seeing that at all. We're not seeing any sign of a leopard coming into the area or spending much time in trees with kills, which is very, very odd. And what amazes me and astounds me is that spending time with Tlalamba in the end of last year, beginning of this year, she was making kills regularly. We were finding her on kills often. And now all of a sudden it's like she just never eats and she's never around. So I don't know if maybe there's something to do with just the thickness of the bush that we're just literally driving past them. That's very possible. I think the biggest factor though for me is the water. Is that we've got so much water and so spread out that they just don't have to walk to the main water points that we generally see them at, and that means that they are less visible, and they are able to find water in the bush areas where we are battling to be able to get to. So yeah, I think that's probably more it than anything else. Alright, so we're just going down. This is where James had the last visual of Tanya and the cubs. Now, while Lauren had those tracks going over, you never know. She might have sneaked on here again, and she might be back here. Worth just checking at this stage. I've checked all of the stuff that are easy to access and impossible places, and no sign of her. So I thought here would be our last-ditch effort, just that she may or may not be around. So, Emma, you're welcome to stay with us. Don't stress. We're just having a little look around. I think everybody's happy to look with us. So this is apparently the point as far as you can go. Now, where James saw her exactly, I'm not quite sure. I would imagine just somewhere on these banks. It's a really dense, thick area, and so it's the perfect place for a leopard to have her cubs and to lie down and those kinds of things. I would expect if she's not here and they were here, the cubs were here, that they wouldn't be visible because they would hide away. They would run away from the noise of the car and hide. But if she's here, then we should be able to see them. I can see exactly where James would have seen them. It would have been straight across BK. You can see the exact same frame that he had for them. They were just on the other side of the drainage here. But there's no sign of anything. I mean, I really didn't expect to find them here, but it was an outside chance just to, you never know. Like I say, it's always one thing in the bushes that you should always check and double check and triple check, because at some point you can get lucky and you can, find something, and if you don't check, you don't know. And that's the reality of it. So it was worthwhile to come into this area. They're not locked down, the leopards are in lock up somewhere. I don't know if they've all been put in leopard jail and are not wanting to be around. I honestly don't know what is going on with them. I mean, I do know. I lie. I say that I don't know. But I do. We're in a very awkward phase in our leopard viewing. There's a change in the entire dynamic of females and males, which is meaning that a lot of them are just moving in different areas. There's a water factor. There's a lot of females with cubs at the moment, which means that they're not ranging as far as they normally are. So there's all these kind of things that are taking place, and that's why we're not seeing as many. All right, I'm going to negotiate getting out of here backwards. And while I do that, I might be wrong. If I am wrong, I do apologize.
Welcome back. We came straight to this lion after leaving this beautiful elephant, and as suspected, still flat cats. All huddled together next to the water here. Maybe this is a tactical move. I'm sure they still got hungry bellies. Warthog is not going to fill them all. So maybe this is tactical in their positioning, waiting for something to come down and drink. Predators will often lie up around water sources because they know the prey need to drink, especially in dry areas where there's not much water, or perhaps only water source for many miles around. And the predator can just lie at the water and wait. It's only a matter of time before the animals need to come down and drink. But prey species are also clever, and in places like that they've noticed that animals predominantly drink only during the daytime, not at night, like they would have in other areas, because they know they need to be able to see very well when they approach water holes, because there could be a predator lying await. Very noticeable how when herbivores, perhaps a herd of impala, would approach the water, it's very obvious how they are very wary. They're always looking around. They don't just rush in like elephant do. Elephant know nothing's going to hurt them. Impala will take their time and really make sure there's nothing. What is this youngster doing? It's stuck in the bush. Tried to roll over and looked like his foot got stuck. Edna, you've noticed how they blend into the grass. I agree, it's a beautiful time of year to sight lions when the grass is a bit yellow. They really do blend in nicely. I love that tawny color of theirs. Phase, you think that surely the grass can't be comfortable? I don't know, they seem pretty content. I think they're just fine. Lion don't like thorns, that's for sure, but as long as there's no thorns here, they're not under any thorn trees, I reckon they're pretty comfortable. They like to use each other as pillows though. Such beautiful sounds from all over the show. The wind through the grass, the birds singing their songs. Not a single lion is looking at us. They're all very content in their dream worlds. But somewhere out there, there is an animal looking at us. Let's send you over to Dylan.
And we are sitting quite far away. Straight line distance from those ostriches we're looking at is probably about 2.5 kilometers. So we're trying to sit dead still because we've got a lot of movement on the vehicle with the wind and that. So Genre is doing a great job there, keeping them in focus. It's a male and a female ostrich, with the male being the black one and the female being that one that's in the picture now with that brownish grey color. There's the male out in the open now. Whoop. Something startled them. But what a beautiful landscape, eh? And there is a giraffe inside there somewhere, but we'll get to that just now. So we've just been sitting up on this dune crest, scanning the very tops of these dune crests because they're great vantage points for animals like cheetah. And they'll sometimes lie up on these high points when they're looking for prey. Debbie, ostriches aren't the same as emus, although they look very similar. Ostriches are larger birds, and of course we don't, in this area we don't, you don't actually get emus occurring in Africa. But otherwise they are very similar looking, and in many respects, in terms of diet, they're quite similar as well. So that's actually a good point, good question. We're just scanning those dunes. So there, those big trees that Jandre's got in focus now, we're looking at them earlier, and that's pretty cool to see because those are called silver cluster leaves. And when we get very close to one over the next couple of days, I'll actually show you why we call them a silver cluster leaf. But David and Tristan and the guys down in the Lowveld at Djuma and Ngala, they can also show you those trees. They've got some beautiful specimens growing down there as well. So it just shows you how you often get these common factors running through different habitats. Yeah, these kind of habitat generalists that are able to persist, even though their habitat is so different to ours, but you get these same species. So that's just quite an interesting one to note. Chandra, where's that giraffe that Emma was bragging about? You got it. There. We're going to try to find some more giraffe or something else a little bit closer. But in the meantime, head over to Ngala, and where the cats sit, they got that side.
it used to be a tree. So here's the parrot I've been talking about for so long, and luckily this time it must send you guys back here just in time before it flew off. While we've been sitting here, we've also been hearing the young rose eagle owl call from the other side of the river. So literally both my favorite birds in the same sighting here, which is quite nice. As for the leopard, we went for a walk for about 20 minutes, just found one track, and you know, even this morning, leaving it, Emma's saying, finally people can believe me and not think I'm crazy. Thanks, Emma. But even this morning, you could see the way the leopard was walking, it was always going to be extremely difficult to try and find him, because he was going up and down, left and right, then up and down again. But in other news, what we did find also is tracks of the Birmingham young male. You could see where he was sleeping on the road for a little while, or maybe just sitting, giving his leg a break. So we decided to come check around here, see if we can skip ahead and see if he came out here, and he's not come out here. What we're going to do here, if the parrot disappears or comes out, I actually want the other parrot to, you know, push this one out, so you can see there's two in there. But in a while we'll go back east and see if maybe we can follow those tracks, see what the Birmingham young male is up to. Oh, he's withdrawing. Let's see. Oh, no. So this is what we were scared of, that no one would believe me that there's an actual parrot in the hole there. But luckily we got to see him today. Ian, I doubt it made it. You know, brown-headed parrots are known to take over woodpeckers' holes. So I think in this regard, it might have been a woodpecker hole that it took over and just kind of shaped the way it wants it. With a beak like that, it doesn't really look like it's able to cut a hole into the telephone pole. Well, he's disappeared. There's a very big elephant bull on the other side, just feeding on some leaves in front of some impalas. Just going to change our vehicle positioning a little bit. Laurie is saying he's eavesdropping on our phone call. Laurie, exactly. It's a spy. And just see the tusks of the elephant feeding there. It was actually quite interesting watching him earlier. What he was doing is trying to get as much grass as he possibly could, so he would go and twist his trunk around and around and around the grass and trying to pull it out and then get as much as you possibly could. So it kind of reminded me of, you know, how people eat spaghetti. They twist their fork into a spoon and then just try to get a lot of spaghetti and like that. Or fancy people. I don't do it like that. I'm one of those that actually cut the spaghetti and then now eat it like that. Now, I once had a girlfriend that absolutely hated that I did that. Anyway, long time ago, spilled milk. Well, it seems like he's browsing rather than eating grass. It looks like he's, what is that, maybe a jackleberry he's eating from. Oh no, it's a silver cluster leaf. Only those leaves contain a lot of tannin. No, what we've done before is you bend it in half and you put it in your mouth. You put it in your mouth and it dries it up a lot. Okay, Emma says, while I reminisce about spaghetti. Time for you guys to go back to David and back to his lions. We'll go see if we can find our own.
Well, this pride has just jumped up. I don't think there's much of a cause. One of the little ones jumped up and ran, and then instantly the female stood up to make sure there was nothing serious, but now they seem to be relaxing. Just a very good example of how, even though they appear to be very lazy and sleeping, they'll be up in the blink of an eye. if something disturbs them. And back down to resume their resting. We are downwind of them now, and I can assure you lions aren't the best smelling of creatures. Some very pungent odors. Eva, you've commented that that was a bit strange. It was, but normal, like I say. They're always alert and always listening. And when a youngster gets up and runs, then the females will instantly react. Angie, you said you thought they would look less full, but it looks like they've eaten a bit. They do have some meat in their bellies, but they can be a lot fuller. Lions can devour a lot of meat and really look very full. These ones you can see they've eaten a little bit, but not as full as they might like to be. Hence, should an opportunity arise for another meal, they will definitely capitalize on it. Whereas if they'd eaten a buffalo this morning, then they wouldn't be interested in any other meat. Lion can really gorge themselves. A large male lion can eat over 40 kilograms of meat. It's around 90 pounds of meat in one sitting. That's a lot of steak. While we sit and smell these lions, we're going to send you over to Dylan, who's got something far better smelling in Swallow.
So while we're having not a huge amount of joy with aardvark and snakes and things, we thought we'd show you this really cool little plant. So this little guy is called the devil's thorn. We get another one here, and not to be confused with, called a devil's claw. The devil's claw has got a large seed pod. It can be the size of my hand. With these, it's also called a grapple thorn, with these like really sharp, incurved points. These little guys have got a seed pod with two spikes on top. See those two spikes? And then the seeds actually lie below it inside that capsule. And the idea here is if an animal comes walking along, or a person, you know, whether you're barefoot or with shoes, you walk, you step on top of that, and it actually sticks underneath the hoof, or the pad of the paw or your shoe, and then you carry on walking and it wears the bottom off, and then the seeds fall out, and then it can carry on growing. So that's just one interesting thing. They're actually pollinated by solitary bees. So you get this beautiful tubular flower, and there's something really cool going on here, because as we're speaking, there's a little insect inside there. I don't know if we're actually going to be able to see it, but there's a little fly right inside the tube of this one here, and he's tucked himself so far down the back there, and it's minuscule. So if you can't see it, you're just going to have to take my word for it, which is quite dodgy, but go trust it. So that's really cool to see. And then the other thing, and Jandro's been kind enough to lend me his water. So the other thing, that this plant is frequently used as a soap. And you just take a couple of leaves, just add some water. I thought you said this was water. And you can crush them up, and it makes this beautiful slimy, you can see it there, lovely slimy, yeah, and it's actually really good for washing your hands. Look at that, it's like soap. Cool, eh? So yeah, so it's just we're conserving fuel now. That's why I spend more time on the ground than in the vehicle. No, the reality is that there are so many cool things, and for a lot of them, you actually, the best way to see them is on ground level. So getting out and smell the roses and look at the insects and look at the grass seeds that are blowing around in the wind. And to see these things sitting in a game drive vehicle is actually really challenging. So you often get far more of an experience. Here's another cool thing, but this one's going to be really tiny. I'm going to try to show it to you, and I don't know if I'll get it right. On my hand, I don't know if any of you can see it there. It's just popping out. There you go. That is called a velvet wasp. So I'm handling it very, very gently so it doesn't sting me. The sting is painful but not serious at all. And these are the females. So the females are flightless, and the males have got wings, so they'll cruise around. She'll give off a nice scent. Then the male comes in and they can mate, and off they go. But yeah, so just by lying down here on the ground at one little clump, see the things that are happening around us. You know, there's little insects pollinating, there's wasps cruising around, you know, there's the medicinal uses of these plants. So yeah, there's a lot of life out here, but you've just got to take the time to get down close. So we're going to release this little guy, little lady, before she gets mad. And I think head off to David and see how it's going on that side.
From the small to the big, we are still here. These magnificent lion. Acetate, you've asked, will a lion ever catch or actively hunt a leopard? And the answer is yes, it can happen. But carnivores, specifically lion and leopard, don't like each other all that much. They are competing for similar food sources. And just instinctively, they will take the chance to maim or even kill each other if the chance arises. It wouldn't be normal for a lion to actively hunt or pursue leopard, but if a leopard is perhaps injured, or perhaps a lion happen upon leopard cubs, then they may very well take the opportunity to kill it and eliminate it from the competition. I've never seen it happen, but I have read about it. What I have seen, actually in the Manyeleti, not very far from here when I was growing up, was a pride of lioness that killed one of the females in the pride that was injured. It was rather unusual, but I do remember that clearly. I'm not sure if it was a lioness from their pride. Perhaps it was a lioness from another pride. That would have made more sense. Generally an injured pride member will be looked after. Perhaps it was a lioness that was injured and couldn't keep up with its own pride and wandered into another pride's territory, and the lionesses of that area decided to kill it, and they actually ate a bit of it, which was interesting. Still got photos of a half-eaten lioness. It's very interesting. We don't fully comprehend and understand the dynamics of these predators. We have come a long way in research, but a lot of it still remains a mystery as to why they do certain things. I remember one old lioness, thinking about an old lioness that was injured. The specific lioness actually had tuberculosis, and she wasn't in a good way, had lots of porcupine claws in her, was very skinny. And at the time we were living in the manager's house at Manyeleti, and this lioness came to the fence, and our dogs approached the fence. We had very protective dogs, and they actually had a go at each other through the fence. The lioness was actually trying to catch the dogs, and our big dog called Bear got his foot bitten by this lioness, but luckily he managed to pull away. And our Australian cattle dog Wallaby got his muzzle through the diamond mesh fence, and this lioness managed to grab him on the lower jaw, and everyone ran out the house. I was still very young, but my father was there, and he managed to grab this dog by its back legs and have a tug of war with the dog and the lioness, all the while screaming for my mother to bring out his rifle, because this lioness was really not in a good way, and it would have been a safety concern, and he was the warden at the time, and he decided this lioness maybe needed to be put down because of disease and sickness. But anyway, mother never did arrive with the rifle. By that time he managed to pull the dog free, and the lioness ran off after much shouting. And the dog, we took it to the vet. It was okay. It just had a very funny scar on its bottom jaw for the rest of its life. Quite a bizarre memory. Gonna sit here a little while longer, see if these cats might get up and start making a move. While we do that, let's send you over to Tristan, who's on a roller coaster of a drive.
It's a roller coaster drive. I've got a roller coaster of emotion in my heart right now for little Clalamba, because her and I are going to have some serious words. She's just been found, if you can believe this, pretty much on the Manyeleti boundary and Buffelshoek, which is so far from where she normally goes. I have no idea what she's doing there, why she's there, and is marching north apparently. She's not even going south, back to this area. She's just hanging around, and that explains a lot. It's why we've just not been seeing her since the last time she was seen on the dam camera, and we tracked it all the way to Sydney's dam. And I said to BK that day, I remember tracking, and we lost the tracks, and I thought maybe she's in the block here, or maybe she's gone into Buffelshoek because they had dragged the road with tires. And it obviously is, that's where she's been. She's just been hanging around in Buffelshoek, and it makes me wonder if she wasn't the leopard that was calling that day when the lion chaos was happening at the gate, and there was a leopard seen. I wonder if it wasn't her that was seen. But I mean, it is very far from her normal area, and I wonder, Debbie, I don't know. I mean, we know that there's been this other male leopard, the one that I saw the other night. He's been hanging around that exact same area. And obviously we know Mulawati's around, but I wonder if it's either she's mating and that's what's taken her up there, or she's petrified for her life from Mulawati and is trying to run away from him and is trying to go north, and then is bumping into other leopards and just going north and north and north, which is not good for us. It's not a good thing at all. We're just bleeding all of our females at the moment. We have no female leopards really that are central to Djuma, which is really not nice. We all got them all around us, but they're not here, and it's interesting to see what is happening with Thandi, particularly with cubs, because we theoretically think it's either Tingana or Mulawati, but what doesn't make sense to me with that particular scenario is that she's moving them to Torchwood and off of Djuma, away from everything that's going on here. And that's weird, because it seems like Mulawati is walking the whole of Djuma and is not discriminating as to west or east, and therefore she should have all her old den sites, if it is Mulawati's cubs, should be absolutely fine to use. And if they Tingana's, well, then she should be more north than what she is at the moment. So I have no idea, unless there's another skittish female running around here that we're not seeing. But it's not like we're picking up female tracks, so I don't think that's the case. But, weird. I'll give you an idea of how fast she is now. But yeah, I agree. It's not acceptable at all. Naughty, naughty, naughty. All right, so this is the map of that I will use. Essentially, this one here, this like kind of weird shape, is Djuma. This blue dot is where I am at the moment. Now, normally, she hangs around the middle section over here, which is Gallagher and Vuyatela, and she kind of uses this area a little bit up to Tambuti Dam and goes across towards Buffelshoek Dam. So it's like this is kind of Columba's section. She was just found over here where that grey circle is. So, I mean, it's a long way from where she is. She's mobile at the moment now, apparently more east, sorry. So she's going like this. Hopefully she's going to turn and come back to us, but she is far north in Buffelshoek at the moment, which is very, very, very odd. And the reason why I'm sure it's her is because one of the guys that's saying it's her has seen a lot of her. Yours has been here for a long time. He knows Kalamba very well, and he wouldn't have said it's her unless he had made sure. So I'm pretty sure that's where she is. It's not good, though, for us at all. It's really, really not ideal. I don't know what's causing such an upset with our females, but maybe it's the addition of these two new boys that have arrived. And I say Mulawati's new, I mean, maybe he's just expanding more than ever now, and this other male, maybe that's just unsettling the girls that were here and they don't know them, and so they're just trying to kind of move and stay safe at this stage. But not good, not for us at least. It's going to make leopard viewing really tricky, but it explains a lot and it makes us feel a little bit better in some respects that we haven't been, just not noticing them. She's not even here, and neither is Thandi, because Thandi was seen last night on Torchwood as well. So, I mean, our females are not here. Shadulu was seen in the west, so there's not really any other females we can rely on. Maybe Siseka, but she's not really been that common. The other thing is that I think there is a kill somewhere on Djuma, another one, because not a single hyena arrived at that lion sighting this morning with all that chaos, and Ribbon apparently is not at the den, which means that where are they? Corky was very round last night, which I haven't even spoken about. We need to get into that too. Corky was very round last night, so I wonder if there's not a leopard kill somewhere that they're hanging around at. Just sounded very odd that they didn't come to that lion interaction this morning. It was so loud, and the warthog would have expected them to make their way there. Okay, I'm going to go back towards the hyena den, just see if maybe a ribbon has arrived. If not, we're going to just go into quarantine and just sit still and listen. In the meantime, though, I'm going to send you back across to David.
Well, I hope Tristan manages to get a little look at either Ribbon or the youngsters. Too much has changed here. But you hear that lovely little grunt that that female gave. What lovely interaction. See that female just stood up, gave a lovely stretch. Came and nuzzled the other female. This is reaffirming bonds. Pride like this is only strong when they're together, and they constantly reaffirm their bonds and their connection together. Especially with what they're doing now. This is called allo grooming. They'll often groom each other. Once again, reaffirming that bond that keeps them strong and as a unit. Listen to the little growls. Beautiful. Look at they doing. Oh, there's little one suckling there, Alex. Looks like it. Lovely. Having a drink. Shame. They were having such a nice drink and our mom stood up. Watch out, are you going to get peed on? Gabby, you've asked, will that warthog meal that they had help with their mange? And it will help to keep them in condition. Mange is an interesting thing. I don't fully understand why some populations are afflicted by it and others not. And surely the mites can transfer throughout all the animals and all the lions that come into contact with each other, but some populations appear to be more affected than others. Loss of condition, lack of food were definitely attributed to it, but so I suppose the warthog in essence will help in keeping them healthy and strong and able to fight it off, but I don't understand very well what would completely rid them of it. Just something you see in some populations and then it goes away and might reoccur later. But to answer your question about food, yes, food will definitely contribute in allowing them the energy required to fight against the parasite. How beautiful is that? Can you zoom in on those little guys having a suckle there? Just behind the grass there, but look at those little guys. So content with mother's milk. Speaking of food, Leandre, you've asked what is a lion's favorite prey. Is it perhaps a warthog because it's very easy? And a warthog doesn't generally feature on the top of a lion's menu, especially prides like this. They need to get large animals to feed all these bellies. That warthog, by the sounds of it, was purely an opportunistic hunt. Opportunity presented and they went for it. But if a lion could choose and go for their favorites, they'll generally look towards larger animals. For the energy that they expend, they need to get as much meat as possible. So particularly animals like buffalo, perhaps wildebeest. The larger the better. Different prides in different regions tend to specialize in different species. And that obviously depends on the availability of the animal, of the prey species, and what's available. I remember a pride in the Manuleti just over the border that used to specialize in giraffe, which is sometimes not common among lions, so everywhere is different. But to answer your question, they'll take what food they can find. Well, it sounds like there's some interesting insects on the ground, so let's send you over to Dylan and see what he's found.
So we saw one of these little guys this morning, the armored ground cricket. Remember, he was also sitting on a tree early this morning. And we haven't seen that many since then, but now there's a whole lot here. And what's interesting, this morning that one was sitting on the eastern side of the tree, facing the sun to get warm early in the morning. These little guys are now sitting on the western side of the tree, facing the sun to get warm before the evening sets in. So that's just quite a fun thing to see here. Another thing that you notice about this tree as we're standing here, I've just approached these little guys, these smooth patches forming on the tree. These are wildebeest bulls that rub on the trees like this, obviously for itching, but they also scent mark with glands to advertise that this is part of their territory and for other bulls to stay away. So that's just interesting, okay, and one sighting kind of leads you on to something else over there. Shame. I feel sorry for these little guys because with this cold front on the way in, we are expecting down to -4 degrees centigrade. I'll have to work that out in Fahrenheit. But we are expecting super cold weather and maybe even frost, and things like this are going to take an absolute knock, and they do, when you get this cold weather moving in. So spare a thought for them when you snuggled up in bed tonight and nice and warm. These little guys aren't. Let's head over to Tristan while Yandre and I continue. We're going to try to find a pair of giant eagle owls.
Small and cute, and I am shocked to the core that it has stayed that long. And there it goes. It literally has been in the road for like 4 or 5 minutes. Well, no, it's not that long. Emma, you did good, I must be honest. Emma saw it pretty quickly. Maybe 2 minutes, which is long. It's 2 minutes in a slender mongoose sighting is the equivalent of 2 hours with a leopard. They generally don't stand still at all. They're normally rushing around somewhere up to no good, with those curious looking little faces and that little black tip to the tail. So that was cool. At least we got to see it. Well done, Emma. But as Dylan was saying, it's going to get cold. I was talking about it earlier. There's going to be a change in temperature. When we get wind like we've had today, and it's that kind of gusty wind, it's always an indication. And you can actually see now, this is the other indication that we're about to get a cold front that's coming our way. If you look to the eastern horizon, or northeastern, there's a bank of cloud that's starting to come. Now when this starts to arrive, I mean, it should really come from the southwest if it's cold fronts at this time of the year, but sometimes they swing a little bit. But when you start to see banks of cloud on the horizons on a winter day, and coupled with wind, then you know that you're about to go through a nice little change of temperature, and it's about to get cold and miserable. Hopefully no rain, because rain in the cold is not so nice, but that's probably a good indication that we are in for a little bit of a different weather pattern over the next little bit, because it's actually been really pleasant. The afternoons have been lovely. The morning's a little bit chilly for the first 15 minutes, and then after that it's fine. And the evenings have been absolutely perfect. I mean, you can see we driving around in shorts and t-shirts in the evenings, so they've been really pleasant. It's not been swelteringly hot where you feel like you're being melted, but at the same time it's not cold where you've got to wrap up too much, so just a jersey and that's pretty much it. But that's, I think, is going to go out the window. It's apparently set to get very cold, as Dylan was alluding to. Frost in that part of the world. Here we very, 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 very unlikely to get frost. It does happen every now and then, but it's really not a common thing. And so, you know, the temperature's going to plummet if that's the case, and it's not pleasant at all when you get those conditions. I'm pretty sure Dylan is not excited for the frost. For anyone that has never spent time in that part of the world, you won't understand the delightful cold that comes into that area. It is quite special. While I haven't been in Swalo itself, I have been in that immediate area, and I know how cold that place can get when a cold front rolls through. And so one needs to brace for that, brace for impact. We're lucky here, we really don't get it nearly as bad as they do. The Lowveld is one of the best places in South Africa in terms of a winter. Our summers are not great because it gets super hot and it can be sticky, but the winters are just absolutely perfect. They do get a little cold in the mornings, but it's not bad at all. You know, we get most days are around 25 degrees Celsius, which is very, very pleasant. It's like the average, 25, 26. So. All right, so we're going to try and find a last-minute leopard. I'm not sure what leopard, but a leopard. I mean, we're going to have to make this leopard. I'm going to have to start dressing somebody in a onesie and make them walk across the road back and forth so we can pretend like we're seeing leopards, because at this stage there's none around. But while we try and see if we can magic one out of a hat, let's send you across to Dylan with an owl.
Are we? So we've just managed to get a giant eagle owl. Super, super, super lucky. Yandre and I, we came through this area about 3-4 days ago just on a trial run, and we got a pair here. But these birds cover such big areas, they've got such big territories, that the chance of coming back like a couple of days later and finding the birds is quite slim. So we are just exceptionally lucky to see this. We stopped as soon as we saw it. There may be a second one around, but this is super, super special to see this bird. Wow. It's the largest owl we've got here. In fact, it's the largest owl we get in Southern Africa. It's also called a milky eagle owl. A milky eagle owl. It's very, very pale coloration. And the diagnostic feature, apart from the size and the light color, the eyelids are a beautiful pink color. If it looks at us, I know the light is kind of on the wrong side over there, but if it looks at us, you get these lovely pink eyelids. I can't believe we came across these birds now. This is just amazing, man. Look at the size of those talons, eh? huge talons, and they will catch anything that they can overpower. There are plenty of records of them catching hares, rock rabbits. I've seen them actually sitting on top of another owl that they've caught, a spotted eagle owl, which in itself is not a small owl, you know, it's 35 centimeters. So these birds can catch pretty much anything they're able to overpower. And some of the viewers that had joined us yesterday, we were looking at that big sociable weaver nest. We frequently find these birds nesting on top of sociable weaver nests, because they got these huge platforms which they can use the hollows on top, and it's nice and safe for the chicks, but very difficult to see these owls. Obviously, you're standing at the bottom of a tree, you can't see what's on top of these nests. You'd actually have to climb up to try to see it. So we're gonna carry sitting here a little bit and see what happens, but we're gonna send you back to David.
So we've been sitting here just listening to hear if we can hear this young male lion calling, because often what he does is just like, that sad call that he does. Then we found this jackal, and it looks like actually two of them, but they are hunting. So when we just found it, it was pouncing through the grass, up and down. You could just see it literally going higher and then back down. It's looking for maybe a small rodent that it might have heard in the grass. There goes the one, and then the other one will join it now. So this is a monogamous pair that live in the clearings here. Both black-backed jackal. Oh, I just stopped right where the pole was in the way. Actually sniffing the car now. Let me see. They're going straight towards the wildebeest. Not to worry, they're not going to hunt the wildebeest. This is just their territory. Actually, does that work for your own? Stop like that. Always moving at a trot. So quite an interesting track to see. The tracks are always on top of each other. They directly register. So the one track would be on top of the other one, because they move at a trot. But beautiful little animals. And it's funny, this time of day they tend to be more relaxed. Craig, I absolutely agree with you. The perfect set of jackals. They are very, very, very pretty. See the very characteristic black on the back and black tip on the tail. But I saw now the one going into the grass, how quickly they disappear. Hey, Odie, I'm going to try drive us, follow them for a little while. So far we can't hear anything. No sound of this male lion. Maybe he's just not calling yet. But the direction, we had him on a road over there coming this way. Dylan, good question. They often travel in bigger groups. We have, I guess you'll call it a pack of jackal further in the west. And there are 6 of them altogether. So it's the mom and dad, and then 2 youngsters, and then 2 newer youngsters. So the first set of youngsters will actually stick around and help mom and dad raise the next set of youngsters, which is why there are 6 of them. They're cunning, beautiful little faces. So nice of them to wait for each other as well. I was hoping that one would go into the grass again after, I don't know, something to hunt, maybe a small rodent, and you could see them bouncing, like jumping up and down. That's absolutely that dog-like hunting behavior. Foxes do exactly the same. They move quite quickly. Let's follow them for a little while they're running down the road. I was hoping, because we're in this clearing, that maybe the young male came here and he would start contact calling. But I think what he might do is go back to his sister's den site because he knows where it is and maybe just wants to join up with the sister again. Emma is saying everyone is loving this and you guys rarely get to see jackal. So, oh, there's a huge warthog. Look at the size of that thing. He would definitely take out a jackal. He's only got, so he's got both top tusks and then only a bottom left tusk and not the bottom right tusk. It's basically, oh, it's huge. Not disturbed at all by the warthogs. Waving his tail. Actually moving towards the jackal. Turns out Marcel is sitting in final control with Emma and he's waiting for these animals to run away. Thanks, Marcel. Thought we treated you quite nicely here at Ngala. Now he wants the animals to run away. Marcel, I think you should start texting me fun facts for the day so I can read them to the viewers. I think everyone is craving your fun facts. Okay, apparently I'm reconsidering my friendship with Marcel. So, while I do that, I'm going to send you back to David and the lions. There they go.
Well, we were looking at the lions, and look at this guy just flew into the frame. Can anyone identify what type of vulture that is? No doubt. Curious to see if there's any meat by these lions. Francie, you hit the nail on the head. It is a hooded vulture. Barbara and Moses, you seconding and thirding, that is indeed a hooded vulture. A very small vulture compared to the other vultures we get around here. The cape and the white back and the leopard faced. It's got a very slender bill, as you can see. And that bill lends itself to being able to get into the nooks and crannies of a carcass. So oftentimes with a large carcass, you'll first see the larger vultures landing on the carcass. If you're hearing a vehicle noise, it's just a vehicle passing by here. But first, the leopard-faced vultures would often land on a thick-skinned animal and can assist in opening up, tearing through. They're like can openers. Their bills are very powerful. And then the other species will join the fray, the white backs and the cape vultures. And then often, at the very end, you find the little hooded vulture picking away at the little bits that no one else can get to in between the ribs and little tight spaces. Kind of like the toothpicks of the bush. It is a funny looking thing, isn't it? Tristan was telling me a story where he saw a hooded vulture eating lion scat. I've heard about that. I've never seen it. It's a very gross thought if you are downwind of lions when they stand up and have a toilet break. It is an atrocious smell, so bit of a gross thought, but perhaps that's what this hooded vulture is awaiting. Might have to wait a bit longer before these guys stand up. On that note, let's send you over to Dylan with an owl.
So we've just repositioned ourselves now so you can get a better view. This is one of the most amazing giant eagle owl sightings I've had in a long time. Just so relaxed. You're getting this soft, gorgeous light coming through those massive talons, preening itself. So he's like waking up for his day is only starting where ours is kind of winding down now. So it's going to be totally worthwhile. We're just going to spend quite a bit of time with this little guy. Not so little, in fact. I mean, this is a big bird. That's the outdoors for you. You know, you can plan as much as you want and something doesn't come right. And then something like this just falls into your plate. But, you know, the more you're out there, the luckier you're going to get. Oh, this is stunning. Wow. But look at those talons, You know, if he manages to get that onto something small, there's no ways it's getting away from him easily. Shirley, to my knowledge it is, but I stand to correction on that, and I'd be very, very happy to check that up for you. But it's certainly the largest owl that we've got in these regions. I mean, these are massive birds. The next largest is what we call a Cape Eagle owl. They don't occur on Swalu, but they do occur over a wide area of South Africa. In fact, in the mountains close to Djuma and Ngala, there's mountains down there, and there's records of Cape Eagle owls from that area as well. And those birds are not far behind these ones, but they're still about a head shorter than these owls. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. So remember, this owl stands about 50 centimeters in height. So half a meter in height, to give you some idea. That's a large bird. Their weight, though, and again I'd have to check up exactly what their mass is, but so many of these birds are so deceiving. You know, you look at a bird like I say, wow, that thing must weigh a couple of kilograms, but it doesn't. You know, I'd be surprised if that bird even weighs a kilogram. You know, like I say, I can check exactly what the figures there are. In fact, I could do it right now. You guys just keep watching, and you know, even if we go to another link, I can feed back in later. But I'm just going to check up quickly for you guys. We slow now. Okay, so I've just checked up now. The males can actually get to 1.7 kilograms, and the females to over 2 kilograms. That's a big bird, eh? And they get up to 60 to over 50 centimeters, so 60 centimeters in height. That's huge, yeah. And they reckon the female's about 10% larger and 30% heavier than the males. So it's obviously difficult for Yandre and myself to try to decide if this is a male or female, you know, when there's not two of them sitting next to each other. But that's a big bird. Might be a snake. So in our area, they'll be catching a lot of things like hares, and not just the normal hares, you know, the ones that look like a rabbit, but we've got ones here that almost resemble a miniature kangaroo, and we call them spring hares. They're also rodents, and they come out at night, but I've seen them eating other birds, including owls. down in the Lowveld, Ngala, Djuma, those areas, they'll even catch things like, baby warthogs. They have been recorded catching baby warthogs, monkeys even, at night. So they got a huge diet. Obviously things like insects and that as well, scorpions. It's not unusual for them to eat that as well. So they got very, very broad tastes. But this is so special seeing this bird like this. Oh, wow. Well, Yandra and I, we're just going to carry on enjoying this sighting, if you guys don't mind. And you guys can head over to David with the lions.
That is very cool about the eagle owl. A very unique sighting. We've switched over into infrared so we can better see these lions now as it gets dark. The sun is set and it's rapidly growing darker. There's not much of a moon, and lion seem to prefer to hunt when it's darker, so maybe they'll be at it again tonight. See the crescent of that moon just peeping through there. We're gonna zoom in a little bit on the moon and gonna have a little quiz. Does anyone know if the moon is waxing or waning? Waxing means it's going into a full moon. Waning means it's going into a dark moon. Just by looking at that, can you tell? Grateful Dad, you've got it. The answers are in. It is waxing, meaning it's going into a full moon. Well, I know that whatever's happening on the bottom left is what's happening. So if the piece of the moon you can see is on the bottom left, then it means it's growing, it's waxing. If the bottom left is the dark piece and the moon is on the right, then it means it's waning, it's going away. So this is the beginning of the full moon cycle. So if you've had a very rough time after lockdown and you wake up a couple weeks late and you're a bit disorientated and unsure of what the time is, and you look up at the moon, you can remember that little neat and helpful trick to know what cycle of the moon is occurring. On that note, let's send you over to Tristan, whose hyena are going crazy, perhaps because of the moon.
Not going crazy, just walking down the road in beautiful late evening light. And it's just one. Let's stop here. There we go, look at that. It looks like potentially hyena could do with a meal, that's for sure. Not in its best shape, that's for sure. Very, very sucked in stomach. It's weird. This is going to be a good opportunity to discuss the whole Corky story because I believe there's been a bit of kind of up and down. But I was sent photos of what I'm pretty sure is Corky from last night at the dam cam, and she was full and fat and even appeared like there was a little bit of suckle marks potentially. It's not easy to see. Obviously, the dam cam footage is difficult, but it looks a little bit like there is suckle marks, and so I'm wondering where she potentially could be hanging out. We've seen no sign of her for ages, and now all of a sudden, she appears on the dam cam. But what intrigues me is how many hyenas we see coming down WildEarth access these days. BK, let me catch up with, she's quite far. Or he, should I say. Is how many hyena tracks we see on WildEarth access. So I don't know if there's something just inside Buffalo's Hook that they're using, or the other place that I've been seeing a lot of tracks is down towards the southeastern corner. So maybe just inside Torchwood. We know that our clan can sometimes go in there. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to try and check all. I was actually on my way right now to the old den sites on Aubrey's and Gallagher shortcut, because we had enough time to go and check both of them when we bumped into this hyena. At first, when I saw it far down the road, I thought maybe it's a leopard, but obviously not. As soon as you see the walk, you can tell very, very quickly. A leopard has a very different walk and obviously a white tip to the tail, which is very diagnostic for them and easily spotted. So it's definitely not that, but it's just interesting to see the movements of them. I'm sure there's... Now, some of you are saying this is cacao, but you're not no proper confirmation just yet. I'll take your word for it. I'm not very good with the hyenas, to be honest with you. It's far more the department of Lauren and Trish and Jamie. Those three were always the hyena girls. The rest of us, well, didn't spend nearly as much time with them as they did. So I spent a lot more time with spotted cats rather than spotted hyenas, that's for sure. I always like kind of watching them, and I always find, actually, if you're having a tough time and not seeing many predators, following hyenas can always be a nice thing. It can lead you to... Just you're confirming that it's cacao. Well, there we go. That's good news. I was going to say that it's one of those things where following them can sometimes lead you to random stuff. You never know. The hyena that was bolting around the other day and chasing, and we weren't sure what it was, ran in this direction too. So you never know. Maybe something's going on in this area, and it will be worth checking. But don't you love their amble as they go? And it is unbelievable how much or how far they will actually travel. These guys during the course of the night. If you come out in the morning, every single road on this property will have one hyena track from the night at least, if not multiple ones in the case of Philemon's Dip. But it's getting very dark, so we're going to have to go into infrared. BK, are you ready? BK is ready, and we're going to go into our infrared right now. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult for BK to be able to do anything, I'm afraid. Put my side lights on the car just so that I can see where I'm going. And make sure that I don't potentially drive over anything. I was very confused just now. We were driving on Triple M, and I saw these tracks, and for a second I thought they were ostrich tracks, but it was just hornbills dust bathing. And when you kind of drive past something quick and you just see a certain shape, and you think to yourself, well, hang on a second. And it was late as well. I had driven quite far, and I was like, no, I need to go back and double check, because ostrich tracks are not something we see a lot of in this area. So we went back and looked, but it was just where hornbills had been dust bathing, and the one had left a very odd shape. It was like the wing was out and the tail was out. Oh, hyenas trotting away from us, I'm afraid. Not going slowly. I don't want to get too close because it makes them trot further. And so I just want to keep my distance a little bit and not make them obviously have to run too much. It's using energy that this hyena evidently needs, given its size of its belly. It's missing Kalamba too. Okay, we have had our sunsets already. It's getting dark here. We're in infrared, but Dylan, we're at Swalu in the Kalahari. Well, their sun is just setting now, and so he's gazing on upon a beautiful sight.
Absolutely magnificent sunset this side. Just watch it disappearing there. We're going to enjoy this moment in silence, okay? Bravo, I can't agree with you more. That is just, this is the kind of thing you live for. What a winner. Africa at its best. That is for Africa Day. The best. Absolute best. Almost looks like that owl's ready to move. He's sitting up quite alert now. And Yandre and I, we're just going to sit here and enjoy owls, amazing African sunsets. But in the meantime, head over to Ngala, and they've got quite a cool giraffe sighting that side.
And what could be more African than a giraffe walking in front of the sunset? And that's literally what we've been waiting for the entire time. But I don't really know what's wrong with this young giraffe. He's been he's been walking around a bush there, and it's like he dropped an earring or something. And then I think there might have been a snake in the grass there or in the tree, because something gave it a fright, and he just ran to the left. As you can see, quite nice now, the silhouette against the open sky behind him. Still a young male. Owen was commenting that Emma's asking if giraffe traditionally lose their jewelry. Emma, only on Ngala. Owen was commenting earlier that the giraffe looks like he has a short neck. So shame, I feel quite bad for the guy. I think he's still growing into it. Finally walking towards the sunset. It's actually very cool. Even though we're losing light very quickly, it looks quite nice. So he's on the road now. I think he might follow the road. Yeah, there we go. He's going straight in the direction where we go. So those ears are just moving from side to side, just looking for any sound or sign of predators. Actually, wait, I'm going to go a little bit forward. We might catch a very nice little glimpse of him silhouetted against the sun, because he's off the road now, so he's to our left, and the sunset is also to our left, which would be in the west. Yeah, he's playing along, or he was playing along. Butterfly is commenting that this is Africa at its finest. Butterfly agree. Emma, we're just going to go out of infrared for a second. See how that... Yeah, it's very dark. If he walks a little bit to the right. There we go. Yeah, it's a little bit too dark to go out of infrared. Okay. We're going to let him be. Let him move off into the sunset and send you back over to David, who's still with the lazy lions.
They are still lazy, haven't been doing much at all. But that's okay. It's a beautiful night. Listening to the night sounds. I love sitting in a place as the sun sets and the night creeps in. It's obviously beautiful to experience that while you're driving around or bumbling through the reserve, but you just sit in one place and be completely surrounded by nature and watch the sun set, feel the temperature drop, and then listen to the changeover from daytime to nighttime and the insects and the bird life. It's special. If you had to try and count these lions now, it'd be difficult. It's just legs and heads everywhere. I can't even tell which side of that lion is what. Yeah, and you've asked why do they always have one leg up in the air? Kind of funny, eh? I think if you watch dogs and cats, domestic dogs and cats lying on their backs, it's also the same. Those back legs don't go flat. They've always got a bit of a bend to them, so naturally they just stay like that. My dog at home. KK, you've asked, is a sleeping pride of lions called the pile? I don't know, but that's a great one. I would be happy to call it a pile. It's a great thought, KK. I'm going to show you a picture of my dog at home I took this week. Very similar. A little bit difficult to see in the IR, but a very similar position. Maybe he's got a bit of lion in him. Well, hopefully these cats get up and start moving soon, but we'll be here till the end of the drive and hopefully get some action. In the meantime, let's send you over to Dylan, who is out and about.
Well, that owl and sunset was just simply sublime in every sense. So we're just ambling along here now. It started, temperatures dropping rapidly. Yandre is just going to pan, if you don't mind, Yandre, we're just going to pan across to the left so you can see these clouds coming in. You'll see these low scudding clouds. There's some beautiful soft pastel light on them. But that's the leading edge of this cold front moving in. So I reckon Probably in about 5-6 hours they're going to be coming over Swallow, and the temperature is going to plummet properly. You see, so the reason for that is that we are so far west of Ngala and Djuma. So what you'll find, if you link in tomorrow morning, you'll see if you had to come out to Swallow, it's pitch dark here, and it's already light on their side because they're further east in the country, and we further west. So that means when they're already filming and we're still dark, we only link in later as it gets lighter here. But then as it's already dark at Ngala, we've still got a bit of light left on our side. So it's just geographical locations that enable us to have more light, and they got more light in the mornings. Well, good observation, by the way. Very, very observant. There's the moon. That sliver of a moon. We'll stop here. They were talking about the moon at Ngala at one of their sightings. And Yandra and I were battling to find it earlier because it was still too light. And there it is. And while we enjoy the rest of our evening here at Swallow, we're going to send you over to Djuma and they can close off for us. Thanks so much for joining us at Swallow again. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us.
It's a real. Oh man, that's so funny.
There's absolutely no light left here. It's actually quite amazing because a week ago we would still be driving around now and there'd be a bit of the sunset left. We're just speaking to Owen and we said we are actually rather happy we are not in the Kalahari. So while it's quite chilly here, we're both only wearing one fleece. And I think the Kalahari must be very, very cold. So we left the giraffe towards walking into the sunset and we decided to turn around and start heading back towards camp. While we did so, there was an elephant trumpeting very loud from this sort of area. So we are just driving along slowly. We don't want to anger an elephant herd even more, especially this time of the night. I must say the moon looks glorious today. Very, very clear sky. What is it? It reminds me of like DreamWorks. It's a DreamWorks picture with the little boy sitting on the moon fishing. George, thank you for your concern. I'm not too sure if the giraffe found its earring, but what we'll do, I think Sean will go check there in the morning and see if it's still there, and then we will return it to the giraffe. But thank you for your concern, George. George the giraffe. We could call it the giraffe George. Oh, it's a shooting star. You see it? Missed it. Huge shooting star. What are we going to wish for, Owen? More animals in 4 days' time. Apparently if I tell anyone the wish, it won't come true. Okay, well, I'm going to say goodnight. Hope everyone had a phenomenal sunset safari. For now, send you back over to David with his lions.
Well, it's drawing to the end of our sunset safari and still no movement from the Nkuhumas, but that's okay. We are content to just watch them rest. It might be a very eventful night for them. So they are making the most of this catnap, get it? It is now properly dark. Getting very silent, very quiet. I hear the occasional snap of a branch off behind us where those bull elephants headed in that general direction. I think Mr. Hooded Vulture is still up in the tree, although I can't see. It's nice and dark. Perhaps you can have a quick look with the infrared. He's there. Yeah. He is there. Can barely see him. He's like a blob. Maybe he's going to spend the night there. Sorry, it's difficult to see. But he is enjoying his perch. He may roost there for the night. If I had to roost there for the night, I'd definitely fall out, but he seems to be stable enough. Well, it's been phenomenal spending time with these cats. But looks like we're going to have to content ourselves and just listening to the magic of the African night. Once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. You're welcome to follow that link at the bottom of the page and help us do what we do best. I think from Alex and I, that's a good night and a goodbye. We're going to send you over to Dylan.
Yandra and I said good night already once, briefly from our side, but then we happened across this beautiful roan antelope, just maybe 400 meters down the road from where the owl was. So we thought we'd spend a bit of time here. The light is dropping quickly, but this is an animal that you don't see too frequently in other reserves. So it's really worthwhile just having a quick look at him. I know the light's not good, but we'll see more over the next couple of days. It's the largest, or the second largest antelope that we have here. The largest is eland, and if we're lucky we'll see those as well. But this is something you don't see often, so it's really worth just looking at a bit. Classic stance, black and white face, big horns. What a backdrop of those mountains in the distance. So he's actually a mixed feeder. You'll see he's got his head down. He'll eat grass, but he'll also eat leaves of bushes. So you get a mixed feeder. And you must just, if you see him eating, you'll see he'll go to a bush sometimes, and then he'll go nibble on the ground. So it'll be something to keep our eyes open for going forward. But while he's carrying on with his dinner, I'd just like to say from Yandra and myself, it's been so good having you, and from the rest of the teams down in the Lowveld. Please join us tomorrow morning early, and we're going to show you some magic. Thank you very much. Bye.